How y'all doing? This is the first time I'm going to do something like this. I am using webcamera.io. It's a video recorder application that I have on my Chromebook, my very trusty Chromebook. But anyway, this is probably on Facebook. Y'all know me. Y'all know who I am. If you're a friend, you're a family of mine, I don't need to make any introductions about myself. Also, if y'all know me, y'all know one of my passions happens to be comics, movies, hip-hop music, and in some cases politics and basketball. Well, on today's occasion, the reason for me to be doing this is two of my greatest passions has now combined, of course, with comics and movies, and we just saw the release of Batman vs. Superman. So I've been getting a lot of questions about it from some of my more valuable friends who wanted my opinion on that release. Y'all know how I feel about this, and I'll just simply cut to it. DC is in trouble. Warner Brothers is in trouble. That doesn't mean that the movie was bad, but I'll give you my bad, I'll give you my good, and I'll give you my initial take on it. The bad, pardon my French, folks, but that story was dog shit horrible. Zack Snyder and his friends, or Zack Snyder and the writers, they just made a mess of that story. It was very, very bad. This movie, the whole point of it is to introduce Batman and all other characters, not Superman, to us, which will now be the DC Extended Universe, which is DC and Warner Brothers' way of competing with Marvel and Disney, as they have now dominated the movie-making industry. So what you have now is, this is not a sequel to Man of Steel. This is a vehicle to be the jumpstart or prequel of sorts for the eventual Justice League movies and all other movies that will be a part of the DC Extended Universe. But back to the story, we just jumped from one issue or one scene to the next. It's a jumbled mess for about the good first hour and 20 minutes of this film. They try to ask really serious questions. They're trying to have a Watchmen-like depth to the story. Watchmen being a previous movie that Zack Snyder had brought to the film. Watchmen, of course, being the 1986 graphic novel that was written by Alan Moore, and drawn by Dave Gibbons. Watchmen was a story that asked serious questions about a world with a Superman and masked men and masked women, and how they affected our real world, socially, politically, economically, the whole nine. They try to ask those same questions in Batman vs. Superman, and there is a political aspect to it. However, we just don't get that kind of depth from the way the story has been presented. I said the story was bad. I'm not saying that the acting and the actors were bad. All parties involved in this film, from Ben Affleck to Cavill as Superman to Gal Gadot, Amy Adams, everybody on screen, they're doing their jobs. They're doing their best with what they've been given. But I think the screenwriters really just missed the boat. And I think it's the pressures of what Marvel and DC have done. What Marvel and Disney has done, I think it's trying to live up to that pressure and in some ways surpass them. The gauntlet has been thrown down by Marvel and Disney. And DC and Warner Brothers is trying to do everything they can to answer that gauntlet and also make money and also remain relevant and get some victories. So about this story between our two characters, we don't really they don't delve deeply into the ideological differences between Batman and Superman. We know that they're going to fight, but we don't really get a good reason as to why. And this is probably another big point. When we start this movie, they don't really do a good job of saying. It's almost like they think that they assume, Snyder and the screenwriters assume that you were there for Man of Steel. When we get to, and I probably should say this is a spoiler alert, when you start off the first 5 minutes of the film, after being told Batman's origin again for the umpteenth time, but we get to see Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, reacting to the carnage that took place in Metropolis when Superman has his climactic battle with General Zod in Man of Steel. What we're seeing is those moments, what we're seeing is those occurrences happen from the perspective of Bruce Wayne. Again, the director and the screenwriters are assuming that you, the audience member, were there for Man of Steel. That's an assumption that they shouldn't take. So my suggestion is what they probably should have done was do like a Rocky rehash, just replay the final few scenes, or replay the finale of Man of Steel, and then splice in what Bruce Wayne went through during those few minutes as an introduction to us in this movie. So the story was, I've just spent 7 minutes on the story, and I'm not going to spend any more on it. The story was just bad. The second biggest point to me that I had a very big problem, probably should have been point number one, but Batman kills in this film. That's a huge spoiler for some of you out there. If you know how I am as a Batman fan, even though I'm wearing a Spider-Man shirt right now, y'all know that Batman is one of my biggest. I'm a Batman fanatic. But Bruce don't kill. Bruce Wayne does not kill. Batman does not kill. Matter of fact, probably the biggest agreement that Superman and Batman have as characters is they both view and they value life. All life is precious to them. That's what separates Batman as a vigilante from the Punisher. When you have Bruce Wayne cross the ultimate line, or cross his ultimate line, which is what Christian Bale so eloquently conveyed to us during the Nolan trilogy, that revenge is one thing, justice is completely different. You kind of understand why Zack Snyder went in the direction that he went. He chose Ben Affleck over Christian Bale, because had he put Bale in this universe, there's no way that this would have flown. There's no way that seeing Christian Bale kill, use machine guns, the whole nine, seeing him actually kill, that would have been hard for us as a viewer. Someone who loved the Dark Knight trilogy, it would have been hard for us to swallow. Now, again, that's not saying that Ben Affleck was horrible. Matter of fact, Ben Affleck was really good. But to see Batman kill, that's a big negative to me. Again, what separates Bruce Wayne from Deadpool or Deathstroke the Terminator or the Punisher, or even what separates Bruce Wayne from Wolverine, is Bruce don't believe in taking life. And, being somebody that went through what he went through, that caused him to go through everything that he went through to become Batman, the death of his parents. Now, their deaths mean nothing if you turn him into a killer. The third point that I wanted to bring across, as far as my third bad, this movie is a total rush job. It's a complete and total rush job by DC Warner Brothers. Um, Again, the first hour and 20 minutes, we're just rushing and rushing and rushing through things to just try and establish this vehicle as a jumping on point for the Justice League movies, for all the other characters that they're planning on establishing for their extended universe. I just Marvel. Everybody laughed when Marvel said that they would do a shared universe 10 years ago, around 2005, 10, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, in 2004, when they said they were going to do a shared universe with all other characters, not X-Men, not Spider-Man, not Fantastic Four. They said, well, with our remaining cast of characters that we still have movie rights to, we're going to do a shared universe. Everyone scoffed at them. Many Hollywood insiders just completely laughed at them by saying that, well, they'll go back into bankruptcy. Well, a decade later, a little over a decade later, billions of dollars being generated. Now DC is trying to establish their own universe after stops and starts. And I was just listening to The Watch with Andy Greenwald and Chris Ryan, and they both drove home a point that DC can't start over anymore. This is what they have to do. If they're in this race with Marvel now, they got a long way to go to catch up. Marvel is now on phase 3 of their films. They established a shared universe. Some films were hits. The Iron Mans, the Captain Americas, Captain America Winter Soldiers. Some films were solid efforts. The Thors, the Incredible Hulks, and of course eventually everything came together for their Avengers movies, and we're going to eventually have the Avengers Infinity War, which DC is trying to do with a major character, a major villain at a galactic level that will mirror Marvel's Thanos. I don't want to give too much of a spoiler away right now, but in this portion of what I'm talking about, but you can see in this movie there were some Easter eggs delivered that eventually what the Justice League is going to have to take on is an intergalactic threat. Now, going back to why I say DC is in trouble, Marvel did an excellent job of layering out and establishing an organic and vibrant introduction to their characters. You know, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson first appeared as Black Widow in the Iron Man movies. Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, first appeared in the Thor movies. Clark Gregg first appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then he and all of his cast of characters ended up having a show on ABC called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. acts as a backbone to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you don't know what I'm talking about with that, I'll probably give another video review later on. But essentially what I'm trying to get at is DC could have used their shows Arrow and The Flash as backbone to the DC Cinematic Universe. They chose not to do that. That will be, in my opinion, a big mistake. The Marvel Universe it's been very tongue-in-cheek. It's been very vibrant. It's been very hopeful. It's been very entertaining. The movies that we've seen so far within DC, well, Man of Steel and now this, were very dark and brooding films. There was a lot of controversy with Deadpool, but Deadpool was an R-rated movie. This was a PG-13 movie that had my grandson he was in fear over this. And there are some pretty scary moments in this movie. But again, that goes back to the dark and the brooding and the shallowness, so to speak, of what Snyder and company is trying to do. But this all comes into what I think is just the problems that they have. And there's nobody there on the DC side of things, even though Christopher Nolan is acting as an executive producer. There is no Kevin Feige, there is no Joss Whedon, there is no panel established by DC the way that Marvel established a panel for their cinematic universe. And again, it goes back to Marvel having a vision, having a plan, sticking to it, and they making a whole bunch of money right now, and everybody's trying to play catch up. And it could. My fear is, with this being such a great time as a movie fan and a comic book fan, if we start seeing shoddy films being released under the comic book genre, it'll only eventually build towards apathy towards comic book movies. And that's the worst thing that I would hate to see. So whereas DC has put out 2 films in this universe that have been kind of Marvel came out with films that were home runs. They came out with films that were solid meat and potato movies, and it eventually built to something like the Avengers that shook up the world. This just didn't feel like, it didn't give me that feeling of, wow, I want to go see that again. But anyway, those are my negatives. Terrible story, Batman killing, and just an overall rush job to try and play catch up, because that's the mood that you feel. The positive, I can't believe I'm finna say this to y'all. I've typed this out on Facebook and other social media outlets. Ben Affleck was very good as Batman. A friend of mine, I'm going to give a shout out to my man Brian Seaton. A friend of mine, he said something similar to where Ben Affleck made him forget all about Christian Bale. I ain't going to go that far. But there is a buzz, and there will be a buzz for the eventual Ben Affleck Batman movie, which he will not only star in, he will also direct and write. Also, another spoiler alert, Ben Affleck will appear as Batman in the Suicide Squad later on this year. I just have to say, hey man, if I was Ben Affleck, or if I was a Ben Affleck fan right now, I would have a big grin on my face, because he answered every criticism that every fanboy out there made about him, and he just said, yeah, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. I got this. And he delivered. Despite the fact that he does kill, he's not psychotic with it. He's more so just, he's grim, he is cynical, just based on his own screen presence. He's of course driven, but he is menacing, and he is very scary, and he was very good in this. Gal Gadot, my second positive. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I am excited to see a Wonder Woman movie. For all of you out there that are comic novices, in the DC universe, if Superman is considered the most powerful superhero in the DC universe, Wonder Woman has always been considered his close second. The way she is presented in this movie, it is very, very, very respectful to that character, who was created by William Moulton Marsden. She very much holds her own in the final few moments of the film. And again, I really am looking forward to, and I hope she can live up to the buzz of her eventual release. And third, the third positive, they made their money, but the third positive I'm going to go with, Let me see if I can find it here for y'all. The eventual fight scene between the two protagonists. As a Batman fan, I was very much, I very much enjoyed the outcome between the two protagonists in this movie. The biggest point that people need to come away with here, Snyder had already revealed that some of the elements of this film were based upon Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, and the fight scene between Superman and Batman is very much emulated from that, and it is good in my opinion. It was very good. It was well worth the hour and 20 minutes that we had to sit there and wait for that eventual showdown. Ben Affleck quotes lines word for word verbatim from The Dark Knight Returns. And again, his Batman was just so menacing. I mean, he's scary. He really is. Ben is really scary. And not to totally take away from Henry Cavill, Henry's a really good, capable actor in his own right, and he's very good as Superman. But the only negative I would say is they're going to have to put Superman on ice. And of course, what this movie sets the stage for is the eventual Justice League movies. So overall, my initial take is a C+ to a 79. We'll see how things go. If I watch it again, of course, y'all know this is going in my Blu-ray collection. If I watch it again, what will it be? That'll determine, a year from now or 6 months from now. If I see this again, it'll determine whether or not I feel it should be an 80 to a B-. But right now, they made their money this weekend, despite all the reviews, all the critics just killing this film. The fanboys showed up as well as the casual fans, and they made their money. They made $420 million worldwide. They made $170 domestically, which beat all estimates. So I'm pretty sure there are a lot of smiling faces at Warner Brothers as far as executives and all parties involved. They should be, that the gif of Ben Affleck being sad with him and Henry Cavill giving that interview, that meme should be put to rest. But I've said it before on social media. I've said it before. We knew they were going to make their money this weekend. Let's see what happens the second and third weekend. Can they get over the $300 million mark? Can they get over the $400 million mark domestically? Can they get over that? That is this movie's challenge, and that is the challenge for DC. Again, I still think that they're so far behind Marvel. I think Captain America Civil War is going to be unbelievable. I think it might be the movie of the summer if Deadpool hasn't in itself already claimed movie of the year as far as comic book movies are concerned. But anyway, that's my take, folks. I've done this now for almost 25 minutes. I hope I didn't run along too long for y'all. I hope I gave as insightful and as honest of an opinion, and I hope I didn't spoil too much. But just hit me up, social media. Y'all can hit me up on my Facebook page, or you can hit me up at JRock133 on Twitter. I also got an Instagram account. Just get in touch with your boy. Let me know if y'all want me to do any more of these, and I'll talk to y'all soon. This is JRock133. Holla at y'all later.